On leaving, if I was leaving the bar, I always like to have a look at it, drive down to the tip head, have a look at it. Run in the river, set across the river mouth, height of the waves, whether they're breaking, whether there's lots of little combers or whether they're big dumpers.
The decision to cross the bar at the start of a voyage is much easier to make than the decision to come back in, and it's much less final.
I've turned around in the river on about 4 or 5 occasions. Same thing, I've had a look at it, taken the boat down the river and said, no, it's not for me. Because from the tip it can be deceptive. You're deceptive how tall they are, how heavy they are, how much runs in the river. No, I'd prefer to be a live cow than a dead hero, and I'm not in the sort of practice of satisfying the people on the tip head either, if I can help it.
There's been many occasions where we've decided not to sail. It's a bit of a luxury when you're at home, because you can go down, and if you don't like the way the bar's looking, well, you're at home, you get to go back to your own bed that night. So it's a lot less pressured call than coming in, sitting out off the bar, wanting to come home.
Even so, there can be subtle pressures on you, the skipper, when you're making the decision to go out.
Certainly if you want to be competitive in fishing, you don't want to be locked in port too many days. So you might decide to push it a bit and sail when the bar's a bit rough, to get out so you're not trapped in port, so to speak.
But unquestionably, the decision to come in is the hard one. And there are lots of factors that make your life as a skipper difficult at decision time.
Sounding pretty good, eh?
When I'm coming in, it's a bit harder because you can't get a physical picture of it, so you have to use the other things. You take into account the swell you've had during the trip, the swell you've got at the moment, and quite often you get a ground swell that you can't actually, it's not noticeable, but if you look at your sounder, we use the sounder a lot, the sounder soon tells you how much actual measurement of lift there is, whether it's 2 metres or 3 metres or 2.5. And then there's the other things like people on the tip heads. If there's a heap of people there, it's marginal. Yeah, it's a bit ghoulish really, but it's a bit like motorsport. People tend to go to the corner where the accidents are, and that's the same with the tip heads. If you see a lot of headlights there at night time, probably don't even try it, because it means the bar is marginal, because they have basically the number of people on the tip head are there to watch an accident.
What the Gladiator spectators on the tip head have come to see is what happens when a skipper has made a wrong decision. For in marginal conditions, choosing to stay out or come in is the most important single decision the skipper must make. But it's just then, in marginal conditions, at the end of a hard-working voyage with a freezer full of fish, that the skipper is under the greatest pressure, professionally and personally.
When you get to the bars and you see that they are cracking, and you've got to make a decision whether to go in or not, it's a very hard decision to make, for the simple reason that 200 metres through that white water, you can be tied up to a wharf, you can be in comfort, you can go and have a beer, you can go home, and that temptation is very, very strong. It takes a lot to override it and say, no, we're not going in, we're staying out. I think it's something that a lot of people don't do enough, but as I say, I know I've been in that situation with how it's only 200 metres here, we can get through it. The old rule, in doubt stay out, if in doubt stay out, yeah, it's definitely, but it does take a lot of doing.
Oh, there's numerous pressures involved. There always is with fishing. Number of days at sea, number of days the catch is on board at sea, turnaround times, reason for the turnaround times, air freight, etc. Fuel, weather, either previous or coming weather. Like sometimes it may be going to get worse, so you have to weigh up how much fuel you've got left, whether you can stand out for another blow. Yeah, there's a few factors involved.
When your body's totally wrung out, you've had 3 or 4 days of rough weather, and then you're pushing it to the limit. You know, you can't sleep, it's too rough to sleep, you're just forcing yourself to stay awake, and that's when you make bad decisions, and little thoughts like that creep in, you know, and I think that sort of thing has caused the odd person to go in when they shouldn't have.
It's always a hard one. Once you've decided you want to go home, you can see the lights of Auckland, and it is hard to stay out there when you know that you want to come in and have the comforts, but at the same time you've got to weigh the safety of that. You know, it's like saying whether you want to go down the motorway at 180k, you know that's going to be dangerous, so you don't do it. Basically, it's every individual skipper's decision.
Yeah, I personally have had to approach the bar on numerous occasions and turn away because I've made the decision. Owners, processors, etc. might not agree with it, but the name of the game is to, you know, if it's too dangerous, it's too dangerous.
I have to confess that my boss wasn't all that happy with the way things went on the bar that day. Yeah, they weren't overly impressed. They were happy we'd come in. We were full of fish. They were happy about that.
The important thing everybody needs to remember here is that a case of fish has no value to anybody until it's landed at the wharf. It's worth nothing floating about in the tide. Okay, the sooner you get it in, the more it'll hold its value. But when it's rough and you're trying to make up your mind whether to come in or not, remind yourself that everybody loses if you don't make it. And you stand to lose a hell of a lot more than money.
I'm not actually a fan of going in over a breaking bar in the darkness. I'd rather actually stay out. You know, stay out, anchor up offshore, and then have a look next morning. Because once again, you know, if it's the top of the tide, you've virtually got like a 12-hour stand down to the top of the next one. So which is a good, which can sometimes be a good night's sleep. Because if the bar's been quiet, if the bar's unworkable, you've normally had a pretty tough time coming up the coast.
That particular crossing, my first one, there was a guy I was fishing alongside in a smaller boat, and he chose to stay out there, and he had an uncomfortable night, but nothing too dangerous. And in hindsight, at the time, I recall thinking that would have been a better option. But you never know. It could have been 10 or 15 knots stronger, the wind out there, and he could have had a hell night. You know, it's these are the choices we have to make.
If you think it's marginal, and even if you're not sure, just don't try it. There's another tide. There's another day. On the west coast, if it's a southwesterly airstream, just bite the bullet and go to Westport, because Westport will be good. And if it's northerly, try Greymouth or go to Jackson's. But yeah, the overall name of the game is just keep yourself and your crew alive.
There has been quite a few occasions where I have approached the bar, and either from advice ashore or on my own call, I've decided not to try and cross it. It's just too much. On those occasions, we just dodge back out to sea.
Well, you can get offside with your crew very quickly. They can only see the fact that they can get in shore or get into port. If you've made the decision and it's after the tide, and you normally just put the head into it and dodge away, just idle away into it, come back the next high tide and have a look.